Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to a discussion of Vinland Saga Book 2. And I am joined here for this discussion by Merphy Napier, who is responsible for me reading Vinland Saga. And so for that, Merphy, I would like to thank you.
Yes, of course.
Also, thank you so much for being here for this discussion.
Happy to. Super thrilled to be able to discuss this with you because, like I said on the video that we did together on my channel, you bring such a unique perspective, having studied so much of this. So being able to discuss it all over again with your perspective has been super cool.
Oh, it's been so much fun for me to read this, and it really is. Oh, and I should have mentioned, yes, we had our first discussion already. In case you guys haven't seen it yet, it is on Merphy's channel, and we did discuss book 1 of Vinland Saga. So we had a great time. I had a fantastic time discussing book 1 with you, Merphy, and
yes,
appreciate your insights a lot, because I did watch a couple of your videos as well, where you were talking about Vinland Saga and how invested you felt in the characters, and I relate to that. And your enthusiasm, I think a lot of your viewers and subscribers would agree with me that you have infectious enthusiasm.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I definitely have been shocked at how much I've enjoyed this series, and something really exciting, which for clarity's sake, I guess we should say, the editions that Philip and I have are the deluxe editions. Yeah. So we're technically discussing volumes 3 and 4 today, just for clarity.
Volumes 3 and 4, book 2.
Book 2, the second book, contains a lot of my favorite scenes and characters and things. So this is going to be a good discussion.
Oh, I'm so excited for this. So I'll let you start. What's something that stood out for you in this, a great character moment, or what character do you feel like is the standout? And there's probably more than one here. There's some
all of them?
Characters. Yeah. But where would you like to start? Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start by saying that one of my favorite scenes in the entire arc is at the very beginning of this volume. And that's this, when he's taken in by the woman. She washes him, she takes care of him, she vouches for him, risks herself so that she can vouch for him. And for me, this was the scene that was the line in the sand. This was the scene that was showing how far Thorfinn has gone from what his father was fighting for him to be, and how much he had gone into this, because he was given a way out. I mean, obviously he could have stayed with Leif and with the others after his father died. He chose to stay with Askeladd. But here he has this relationship with this woman. He can have that domestic life. He can have a family. And you can tell that he cares about her. He even tells her, I told you to leave, go. Like, he's worried about her.
Yep.
But he still follows through on their plan. He still chooses destruction. He still chooses to pursue revenge. And I think this panel here, where you can
so
see
good.
The look on her face and the look on his face of being so sad that he's let her down. And then you see it from her perspective. The Vikings coming behind him, and then you see them coming in, rushing past her, and then he follows them. He walks away. And to me, that was one of the most powerful scenes for him as a character in this entire arc, showing how much he's truly forsaken of what he thought he would be for this path of revenge.
Yep, that is so beautifully said. And I must say, it's a kind of prologue, I guess, to the story, and these prologues have been really good so far. There's a lot of setting up work that the author is thinking ahead. Yukimura is thinking, here are my themes here. I'm looking at how far can you go before you're beyond redemption, or what are some of the things, the consequences of not only the trauma we go through, but the trauma we inflict. And, you look at this kid who has been taken in by this woman who has shown him kindness. And what a beautiful touch that Yukimura gives this little piece here, this little wonderful reflection of character, where he has the woman, we know that she's lost a son. that she's been through that pain.
Yeah.
And one response to pain is empathy. And this woman is, I think this is going to be a running theme here, is empathy, compassion. This woman shows compassion because she's been through pain. She knows what it's like to hurt and to suffer. And her first instinct is kind of maternal here, but it's also very empathetic. And she takes this boy in spite of the fact that he is the enemy. And she knows it. She's not a fool. She knows he's the enemy. And that when the soldier comes looking for him, she covers for him. And he asks, who is this? Is this your son? And she's like, yes, this is my son. And he's got his hand, what a lot of tension. He's got his hand on one of his short swords behind his back, and he's ready to pounce. You know, we know this. We know that Thorfinn can pounce when he needs to. So wow, just great character work here. And as you say, it is tragic to see this kid, particularly with the legacy that his father tried to give him and what has actually become of him instead. It's going to be very potent, I suspect, down the road as I get further in the series to see, okay, this Thorfinn fella is going to be very scarred. Yeah, it's really good character work.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said in the other video, I've already read the next arc, so I'm not going to respond to what you just said, but I do appreciate how much of that you're seeing, because I think you're right on track. I think that a lot of what you're picking up on is it's perfect. It's right on track for a lot that that the story has to hold. And I'm so glad that you're enjoying it.
Oh, it's really great stuff. And again, the mixture of Yukimura just making up characters, this whole part of Thorfinn's childhood is fictional here. It's completely made up. It's Yukimura, and he's doing it. It's all him. But there are things he throws in there, like we meet Thorkell the Tall, for example.
Do you love him?
Oh, he's so vivid. I mean, he's such a vivid character. Who interestingly
is sagas as well.
He is a historical figure. He's a real person who existed in this time period. And actually, interestingly, I don't know where Yukimura is going with this, but in fact, Thorkell was associated in some of the stories with the Jomsvikings. He was a Jomsviking himself. It's according to some of the stories, although they're a legendary group. So, but it was a Thorkell the Tall. He did interact with Canute. It was reported in some of the stories that he, in fact, tutored Canute. He taught him at one point how to wield arms and that sort of thing.
Interesting.
So, one of the stories, yeah. So he definitely did, and he was, by the way, a Viking who turned on the other Vikings for a moment there by defending London from the other Vikings. So that's historically correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, which I'm certainly not as well versed in the history of all this as you are, but I've naturally done some Googling as I've gotten more and more invested in the story. Yeah. And I love that he's taken these historical characters and made them his own, but also there's so many events, so many battles, so many moments in history that he follows that thread and represents. So it's this kind of flux of we're following history, but we're following our own version of that history, and he's kind of filling in the pieces in his own way, which I think is such an interesting way to tell a historical tale.
Yeah, he's bringing, I mean, for the story is primary. I think he wants to tell a great story. And what he does with that, he takes certain things from history and from the sagas, and Canute, we don't really know much about his childhood. In fact, he is described as being very tall and very strong. And those are, that's not exactly what we get here, but I should say spoilers for book 2 of Vinland Saga. But sure. Yeah, I forgot to say that in the beginning.
It's all right.
My fault. But anyway, Canute was not like the character we are presented with here in the second book, as far as we know. That's all Yukimura. But he's doing something interesting with that. Obviously, a lot of it's a trope, and it's an interesting one. A lot of heroes are weak or somehow not thought highly of in their youth, and they have to prove themselves. And Canute historically was the king not only of England, but also of Denmark and Norway and parts of Sweden. So this was and he's regarded by many historians as being one of the most capable kings of England ever. So, I mean, he had although his legacy didn't really last, his sons weren't able to hold all that together the way he did. Nevertheless, here's a guy who had essentially a Northern European empire, who was a very powerful individual. So it was interesting to me to see, oh, I see. Okay, he's using this trope of the weakling in his youth who has to somehow get beyond that and learn how to be strong and learn how to be brave and all of that. So it's an interesting presentation here.
Yes, and a lot of the nope, I won't say that. I'm trying to, I don't want to lead you too much.
I can see you're holding in a lot of
I am.
Gonna happen.
It's good stuff though. Anybody that's watching this that has read as far as I have and further is appreciating the things that you're saying. I'll say good. That. You're picking up on a lot of great stuff and you're very knowledgeable. And I think that you being so knowledgeable on history is going to lend itself well to you enjoying what the author continues to do.
Yeah, a bit of a spoiler in a way, I guess, since I know Canute historically was such a powerful king. So
right, and right.
Thank you, Merphy. It's so hard. I know I've been in that position too in discussions where I've read much further in a series or I finished a series and I'm like, wait, I can't say that.
Yep. It's a challenge. Because like I think I'm gonna say something non-spoilery, and then it's like, no, I don't want to set expectations. I just want you to enjoy the story.
Yeah.
He continues to do his own thing, to make his own story, but I think that you understanding a lot of the story and knowing a lot of stuff in advance is only going to make you appreciate how much he put into this story, how much research, how much time, and how much care. So I'm excited to continue to talk to you about it moving forward.
Oh, I'm so excited.
We mentioned Thorkell, and then we didn't talk about him. Do you love him?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, he's just such a vivid character. The way he's the first time you meet him, he's like, yoo-hoo, come on. And he's this immense person who
he's such an overgrown child.
There's just this joy of being alive.
Yeah.
And of course, unfortunately, it is wrapped up in dispensing death at the same time.
Right. What makes a man is his, what was it? What makes a warrior is how, hold on, let me find it.
Yeah.
How you fight and how you die. That's what matters.
Yes.
That is, and the stronger the foe, the better. Like his philosophy is so tragic to me.
Absolutely. And there's the picture I was looking for. That's when we first meet him.
and you continue to, even in his fight with Thorkell, you see Thorfinn, you see how much excitement he is to meet a proper warrior. The moment when he asks him, warrior, I would know your name. I love how as much as somebody loves battle and thrills in the fight, that he also has so much honor behind his name. I mean, as much as you can when you're murdering masses of people.
Yeah, of course. He is a pagan, I think. He has, although he's defending the English at the moment. I mean, he's doing it for his own reasons. And that pagan heroic, code is do great deeds to make your name live on. And that's the best thing you can do, considering that everything's going to end in darkness. The world is going to end in Ragnarok. And so the greater the deeds you do, the more people will sing your praises. The bards will sing your tale. So he's living that philosophy absolutely to the hilt. So
interesting. Okay. I'm glad you said that, because I was about to discuss something that I thought was in this volume that isn't. So we actually go deeper into his philosophy later. So you'll get to know more about why he fights for what he fights for, and all that good stuff. He's a character that to me looks like an overgrown child that will be fun to hang out with, and ended up serving exactly as you would expect a character in this series to serve, to be so much more than just that archetype that it looks like.
Yeah, there's something more to him, apparently. Now, historically, I mentioned already that the real Thorkell the Tall was associated in some of the stories with the Vikings. So that would mean, I think, that he would have known Thor's the troll, who is, of course, the father of Thorfinn, who is basically the protagonist here. And when they fight, he doesn't know who Thorfinn is yet, but that's why when he hears the name, there's a reaction there. There's something going on there, I think. There's a reaction, and he clearly later on is trying to find Thorfinn. That's one of his big motives, I think. So there's something up there with the connection between Thorkell and Thor's in the past, which is going to have, I think, some bearing on the relationship possibly between Thorkell and Thorfinn. So I'm interested to see what happens there. It's a really cool how Yukimura sets this all up with their initial meeting being a fight, where Thorkell learns to respect this kid, and he's like, and later on he even tells people, don't underestimate this kid. Don't underestimate. He says, I think he knew Thor's, and he said he's the only person I've ever met who is stronger than I am. Yeah. That's what he says later on. So it feels like, okay, something's up here. And so it's almost like in the process of his shenanigans where he's, kidnapping Canute, and he's pursuing, after he loses Canute, he's pursuing Askeladd's band and all of that. He is also somehow very intrigued by Thorfinn, I think.
Yes. And I was just flipping ahead to make sure that I understood exactly how much you've read up to this point. It is very fascinating to hear you theorize, again, based off of lending, some of that is lending from your historical knowledge. But it is very fascinating to hear you theorize. I really like that. Knowing what's to come.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's just really right off the page. How many characters do you meet right off the page who suddenly just are alive like that? And Askeladd is that way too. Do you know, when you were talking in one of your videos about Askeladd, do you know who I thought of? I know that you're also reading Live Ship Traders, I believe. Yes. I thought of Canute. Askeladd
really?
And Canute seems
Explain yourself.
They're so similar. They're both piratical. They're both villains that you can't help but sort of like and even admire.
Who likes Canute?
Do you like Canute? I mean,
no.
I mean, he's charismatic. He's charismatic.
He's good at finding followers.
He's charismatic in a way that I find similar to the way Askeladd is charismatic. Like, his followers will do what and same with Canute. There's this faith that they have in him as a leader. And they also both seem almost to just do things almost accidentally that turn out in their favor.
Sure.
So I thought, wow, that sounds like Canute in some ways too, doesn't it?
Very strategic minds, very good leaders, very determined in what they feel is the path for them. Yep.
Heinous thing.
I suppose I can see some similarities. You're
not joining the Canute fan club, though.
No, I have a lot of affection towards Askeladd, and I cannot say the same for Canute.
Yeah. Oops. Well, anyway, I mean, they both have their. So, have you finished Live Ship Traders yet?
Only 2 books.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll come back to that discussion then.
Okay. We will
come back to that discussion. I won't say more, but I'll be very curious to hear you talk about Canute, maybe after you finish the 3rd book in Live Ship.
We'll have to do that. Have to do that. I want to ask you what you think of getting to see Thor's daughter again. Ylva? I'm not sure how to say her name.
Oh, Ylva. Yeah.
Ylva. Okay.
It's Ylva, right? Yeah.
Yes. How do you feel about Ylva?
So I feel terrible for her. I think that she has suffered some trauma in her life and feels that her family is vulnerable, and she has a very practical mind and doesn't want to suffer the consequences of what she would see as perhaps poor decisions. Like she's mad at her father for the slave, that he had taken in and giving away, what was it, 6 sheep or whatever?
I thought it was 5. Yeah, it's in that realm.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, she's appalled by this. So she has not learned empathy yet. And she's young, and that might be part of it. Sometimes young people do learn it, and sometimes it takes a little longer. But her response to the losses around her is understandable. I mean, people sometimes you just get into survivor mode, and you have to, in your mind, you're making decisions that are just, I'm sorry, I have to do this, but it's do or die here. And I'm going to do something that may not be noble. It may not be loving, but it's me surviving. So I understand where she's coming from. And there are moments where she, particularly with her mother, I think, where she clearly loves her mother. And I think she was frustrated by both of her parents in some ways, not being the practical, hard-nosed people that she probably is going to become herself. So I foresee some perhaps future tragedy for her, I think, given that she wants to survive first and then do the right thing if she can. If she can't, well, that's just too bad. So I don't know what's going to happen with her, but I feel like there's something in the future of her that is going to be unfortunate and maybe tragic as a result of her sort of outlook, I guess. But we'll see. She might get mixed in with the wrong people, thinking I need to survive and I need to do it by allying myself to this strong person. Maybe he or she, whatever, is not a nice person, but they're strong and I need to survive. So so be it. So I'm kind of getting vibes where even it might even be it would be interesting to see down the road, of course, Thorfinn and Ylva meet again. I have a feeling they're going to be on opposite sides of something as a result of her outlook, maybe.
Interesting. So I have, I think, a very different perspective on her character than you.
Okay, cool.
This scene that I opened up to, where we got to see just these flashes of her life, checking back in with her, was the scene that cemented her as one of my favorite characters.
Okay.
And I feel like I really relate to her a lot in the way she's handling pain. I don't know how old she is here, but when I was especially a teenager, I think I handled situations very similar to her, which was push it down, nose down, and work.
She works.
Do what you have to do. Yeah. So for her, she talks to people and she projects this toughness of like, well, it's their own fault. They put themselves in this position. They did this. And just putting up a wall and speaking about it in a very crass manner, and then just nose down and work. Take care of my mom, who isn't doing well. Take care of my home. Do what needs to be done. Don't think, don't feel, go. And she becomes this incredibly strong woman.
True.
Who is handling things incredibly well, holding down her home incredibly well. She got the first hit in when they went whaling. She did the first spear. Like, what a powerhouse she's become. And then her mom sees through it all, like even when her mom just gets up to do dishes and she's like, Mom, I told you I'd take care of that, after she's just taken care of so much. And her mom just cuts through it all, makes her stop, because she knows that she's using this busyness to keep the emotions down. She's using this busyness to distract herself. And then we get to see her cry. We get to see her actually feel. And we see that all of this has been a front, and beneath it all, she's hurting just as much as everybody else.
Yeah.
And her character just really speaks to me, because I think that she has so much kindness and depth. And I think I see that empathy in her just showing differently, because it's the empathy for her mom. Her mom needs to mourn, and her mom needs to suffer, and her mom needs to hurt. And so she's allowing her to do that by taking on everything on herself, so that she can let her mom feel what she needs to feel and mourn for as long as she needs to mourn. But in doing that, she's not allowing herself to mourn. And that moment there at the end, I feel like, was her mom telling her, you get to mourn too,
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's a really beautiful scene. And I love that Yukimura put this interval of a sort in there where we do get to see her. And it's so right that she is burying her grief in piles and piles of work and just looking for something to do almost, right? So she doesn't have to think about her grief. So it'll be interesting to see where she goes. But yeah, I hope I'm wrong that she's not as tragic as I'm thinking. But I think that you're right too. I don't want to discount that she has the capacity for empathy too, and that she is part of the motivation definitely is to take care of her very vulnerable, sickly mother as well. And so she's kind of having to be the strong person now. Without her father present and without her brother around, she's kind of shouldering it all. So yeah,
she is. Yeah. And no, I don't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's the end of the thought.
Okay. if it pops back in, we'll just absolutely go back to it. So
okay, cool. I'm looking ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, if you had something you wanted to do, I'm looking ahead as well at some of the trauma again that Thorfinn is going through. And here he sees and does some horrible things again.
Yeah.
He witnesses a young English woman being raped by his comrades, for example. They burn people alive later on. There is a village that they massacre, which I thought that scene was really well done because we build a connection to the one character. I think her name is Anne, who's worried about her soul because she stole a ring at the marketplace, and that turns out to be something that keeps her away from the home when Askeladd's band shows up. And they've taken a turn into Mercia, which is one of the English kingdoms, rather than go through the Welsh kingdoms as originally planned. So they feel like they're free to go ahead and pillage and kill people. And they do. It's a horrible scene where they massacre these helpless people. And
yes, I'm curious, in the last video that we did when we talked about the first book, you mentioned Askeladd, but we were trying not to do any spoilers. I would love to hear you talk about his character now. After seeing the village being slaughtered and seeing all of that. Yeah,
I mean, it's horrific. It's horrible what he does. It's heinous. And at the same time, we learn a little bit more about his past here in book 2, that he has a Danish father who essentially kidnapped and raped his mother, who was in the story. She is a descendant of Artorius or King Arthur. So that's an interesting past. I don't know how historically correct it would be to present, for example, Gratianus he feels more Roman than Welsh to me. And at this point in the history of Wales, I don't know if they would have actually been that cognizant of the Roman past. In fact, Wales was never Romanized. Wales was, that part of Britain was never colonized by the Romans for the most part. And so it might be a slight inaccuracy to present them as being so plugged into their Roman past, but I'm fine with it. You know, I'm not here as an historian or something. I'm here to enjoy the story. And what Yukimura is doing is he's trying to give this character, Askeladd, a legacy. He's giving him a past. He's giving him, once again, conflict. He has a Danish side and he has a Welsh side to him. And he is secretly, we learn here, much more sympathetic to the Welsh side. And he seems to be using these people who are following him. And as they go through and meet Gratianus in the kingdom of Morganwg, which is how you'd say that in Welsh. And then they get their treaty to go through, what's the other one? Brycheiniog, I think, is the other kingdom that they go through. You have to do a lot of ch sounds. But so that part, and they even have a little like, how Arthurian can you be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very...
Lots of imagery. It's
a little anachronistic, I think, what Yukimura is doing with that, with the Arthurian stuff being kind of inserted in here, but I like it. I think it's creating an interesting dimension that I would not have predicted from book 1 at all. So it Caught me by surprise.
Yes.
What do you think about these two sides of Askeladd? Is that why you find him so compelling?
I think at this point in my reading, I mostly just found it fascinating that he was a character that wasn't cleanly good or bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hints as to what his intentions are with wanting to capture Canute and wanting to all of his plans up to this point, and his agenda and trying to get there and all that he's willing to do. In this situation, it's, well, we need food, we need supplies, we need shelter, we need to dodge Thorkell. So what are we supposed to do? We have to do it somehow. We die or they die. So my agenda matters more than me, or more than your what you need from your life. So I found him to be a really fascinating character because there's a lot of hints that there's a greater purpose. And there's also a lot of kindness that we see. We see him being kind to his men. We see him putting up with insubordination with Thorfinn. We see him dueling Thorfinn and always disarming, always winning, never killing.
Right.
We see a lot of kindness shown in him, and we see a lot of mercy, but then we also see this absolute cruelty. Well, maybe cruelty is the wrong word. It's horrible what he's done.
Oh yeah.
And he does explain to them, I could let you suffer. I could let you try to fare the winter and die slowly and terribly. I'm not going to do that. It's still horrible what you've done, Askeladd. you know?
Yeah.
And but he doesn't relish in it. He doesn't thrive when his men are pillaging and raping. He's not participating, but he's also fine with it. He views it as letting off steam. So he's such a, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. But you just, so many thoughts are exploding.
Go ahead. That was a monologue. Your turn.
Briefly, just sort of, I guess, go along with what you were saying. There's that beautiful scene when he's up there in the Roman ruins.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually Thorfinn who goes up there to find some solace while the rest of the band is doing some horrible things.
Absolutely.
Askeladd is up there in these ruins, and you feel like he's very melancholy about this, that he is not happy about that he himself is haunted. And there's some really nice visuals there too.
Yes.
Where Thorfinn goes there on his own, and there's this bond between him and Thorfinn, and it's, you see it in that scene, like it's almost like Askeladd is waiting for Thorfinn to finally beat him and kill him, in a way that he wants him to do that. Almost, he has empathy. He buries it in order to do what needs doing, and there's those two sides again. I think the survivor, it's me, but then there's the empathy in him too, which is evident here, and he is very, I think, he's very upset about what he has to do, but he's going to do it. There's a lot buried in this guy.
You're right. There's a lot buried in both of them. And you see a true bond between the two of them, an understanding, a genuine caring that they've both developed, even though in Thorfinn's eyes, they're enemies, but it's not so simple. And anytime Askeladd tries to be chummy with him, Thorfinn turns and he's just like, I'm not your comrade. I'm not your friend. We're not bonding right now. But it's undeniable as you read it that there is more between these two than just, I'm here to win an honorable duel, to
avenge.
Thank you, my golly. To avenge what you killed my father in a dishonorable way.
Right.
I'm going to kill you through the duel that should have ended you in the first place.
Yeah, he wants to reenact that duel. He does.
Yeah, and I think it's so fascinating again that we're not just doing that straight lined story, that he's just doing so much more than that. There's so many extra layers to it all.
It's almost as if Thorfinn is trying to reenact his father's duel in order to make all that pain go away. And it's ironic too, because Askeladd, I think, is taking the place of a father figure for Thorfinn. It's such a complex relationship here. it's really something. I mean, it's hard to point to too many relationships in storytelling where you have this intense combination of hatred and respect and almost, dare I say it, is there love between them even, you know? It's really something.
Yeah, and we're just going to keep peeling back those layers more and more as we continue on with the arc. It's really something special. My daughter just got home from school.
Oh, yay. Yeah, she's free to make as much.
Don't put her on camera. We're recording.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, just brilliant stuff. And fatherhood is definitely another theme that seems to be very prevalent in here. And the relationship with father figures for Thorfinn as he's growing, and also for there's another father figure in here for Canute, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is an interesting relationship going on here, where you have Ragnar, who does what a lot of parents do, which is overprotect, perhaps, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he watched Canute grow up. He watched Canute be kind of ostracized and afraid, and that contributed so much to how he presents himself now. And even whenever Askeladd tells him, say something fierce, I'll translate. And his response in every situation where Canute is not, when Canute is acting in a way that is not beneficial to him, Ragnar's response is always just like, it's okay, hide behind me, you're fine, don't worry about it, you don't have to talk, you don't have to, so it's that overcompensation again, just like Thor's was doing with Thorfinn, just in a different way. Yeah,
interesting. And I get the sense that we haven't seen him actually, for some reason. Yukimura is not showing us the face of Sweyn Forkbeard, who is the father of Canute, the king of the Danes.
Oh, that's just a manga thing.
It's a manga thing. Okay, but there's something sinister in that presentation too, isn't
right? Yeah.
You get the feeling that there isn't a lot of warmth between, as Yukimura is portraying it, between Sweyn Forkbeard, the father, and the son. That the son has been, and there's the allusion, I think, at one point where they show Canute as a little boy watching as someone, probably his father, is beating someone to death or bludgeoning someone with an axe or something. So this kid has been traumatized by his actual paternal relationship. That seems to be what's going on here. Like Sweyn Forkbeard is not a warm father. And it's interesting because, and they are Danish, but they also are Christians at this point, because actually historically Sweyn Forkbeard's father, Harald Bluetooth. Don't you love the Viking nicknames? You wonder, how did he get the nickname Bluetooth?
Right.
Yeah. But Harald Bluetooth did convert to Christianity sometime prior. So, but they're still kind of, it's almost like it's a veneer, and they're not that different from the still pagan Vikings like Thorkell and others. So, but yeah, I sense a lot of, it'll be interesting to see what Yukimura is doing with this character here, Canute, putting definitely his own stamp on the character. But there's some major trauma here with Dad, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see that's a common theme in manga, is the character reveal, the character design reveal is like, it's a thing that people look forward to and all that. So you kind of got that with Canute too. You think that he's going to look a certain way, and they withheld the design. And then the reveal comes and it's like, oh, that's it, and the characters respond. And, that kind of comical reveal isn't what I'm talking about. Just a reveal, a character design is something that readers enjoy looking forward to. Yeah.
So this is our initial view. And then later you get the reveal, where you had this wonderful expression on Askeladd's face, which is like,
it's so funny.
It's really, I can't remember what page it is, but when you finally do see him, it's really something. It's really well done. The expressiveness, and we talked about that in the video on your channel, is something that I'm enjoying, actually. The facial expressions, exaggerated as they are, it's a very effective way to convey emotion, to convey.
He communicates so much through their expression, so much of their headspace, so much of where they are in life through the way that how hard their eyes are and things like that. It's incredible.
Yeah, and there are great advantages to that because visually you can show a lot and you can convey a lot. Even actually, you know, in terms of so effective writing appeals to all the senses, right?
Yeah.
And so in terms of the auditory parts of this, you have all these sound effects that, you know, it's part of comic books. Like you have, you know, certain words like here's one with droot, 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 and they're marching or whatever. And you hear clop, clop, or, you know, psh, or whatever, you know, depending on the scene, there are all these little sound effects that you're reading, and that's bringing the story alive as well. What's a little harder, I think, in manga is smell. You know, smell is a very important one too. You could talk about a character's sort of like sense of smell, like they could say, "Oh, that smells like pigs being roasted" or something, you know. But that's a little harder to convey in a manga.
Found it.
You found it, yay! And there's Askeladd's expression. Yeah,
it's so funny.
Yeah, because they're expecting a warrior, and they get this someone who looks much more effeminate in their eyes, and so it's a surprise. Yeah.
I do have to hop off, get my daughter down for a nap.
Oh yes, of course. So,
but I have loved this discussion. This has been. I'm so glad that you enjoyed. This is such a good volume. I'm so glad that you've enjoyed it.
It's great stuff. It's great stuff. Thank you, Merphy. I will thank you. I'll let you go real fast, but I do need to thank you once again for getting me onto this wonderful series. I'm looking forward to talking about books 3 and 4 with you in the not too distant future. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. And until next time.